Pliny and persecution. Around AD 110, 3 years after Ignatius died in Rome, Pliny the Younger, governor of Bithynia Pontus, wrote to the Emperor Trajan regarding the Christians that he found in his region. He dragged some in, interrogated them, sent them off to punishment. His activities set off a torrent of accusations. Some who were arrested denied being Christian. Others said that they had been in the past but weren't any longer. Others claimed that they had never been a Christian. "Oh no, not me. Gov, I swear I don't know about that. Don't know how that hymn book fell into the folds of my toga." Their crime was familiar: the refusal to worship the traditional Roman gods, in particular the emperor. By now, the cult of emperor worship had become a fundamental test of civic loyalty throughout the mighty Roman Empire. Sacrificing to the emperor showed that you were a loyal, obedient Roman subject. It was like singing the national anthem or saluting the flag. Trajan instructed Pliny not to go looking for Christians, but that if he found them, he should punish them, unless they deny being Christians, and make it plain that they are not by worshipping our gods. Pliny even devised a 3-part test to determine whether somebody was guilty of being a Christian. First, they had to worship Roman gods, repeating after him a simple invocation. Secondly, they had to make a sacrifice of frankincense and wine to the gods. And thirdly, they had to curse the name of Christ. And if they refused, they were killed. In Smyrna, Polycarp failed the test. Polycarp is Greek for a lot of ornamental fish. The aged bishop of Smyrna, to whom Ignatius had written, and who as a young man had listened to the Apostle John, was offered the chance to save himself. All he had to do was perform the sacrifice to the emperor, and he would be freed. He refused. As he was dragged into the arena, the crowd yelled, "It is the teacher of Asia, the father of the Christians, and the overthrower of our gods, he who has been teaching many not to sacrifice or to worship the gods." And on the 22nd of February, AD 156, he was burned at the stake. The church collected his bones and gathered every year at the tomb to celebrate what they like to think of as his real birthday. Martyrdom was seen as the ultimate for Christians. The bones of the martyrs were treasured, and their example seen as inspirational. Martyrdom was the ultimate imitation of Jesus. So much so that sometimes the desire to follow their leader got out of hand, and Christian leaders had to discourage wannabe martyrs. In the 150s, a group of Christians from Smyrna handed themselves in to the authorities in a zealous desire for martyrdom, only to find that their leader ended up making a sacrifice to Caesar to save his life. "That is the reason, brothers," said the church patiently, "why we do not approve of men offering themselves spontaneously." Increasingly, Christians saw themselves as different to the rest of the Roman world. In the 3rd century, Christians even invented their own term for the non-believers. Pagani. The word actually means country folk. They were the yokels, the pagans, people who still believed in the old gods. Rome 2, Jerusalem 0. In 132, the Jews revolted, again. Fury had been growing since the destruction of the temple in 70, and this time they were inflamed by a man called Simon bar Kokhba. The end result was the same as before, only more so. The Romans crushed the revolt and exiled the Jews from their own country. The emperor and famous wall builder Hadrian turned Jerusalem into a Roman camp called Aelia Capitolina. The very name of Jerusalem was erased from the Roman world. With deliberate offensiveness, Hadrian built a temple to Jupiter in the city. By coincidence, this was built over the traditional site of Jesus' death and resurrection, and ironically enabled the Christians, some of whom returned to the city, to remember the site. When other Christians came and asked where it had happened, they could point to the temple and say, "It's under that ugly big temple over there." For the Jews, this was final. Now there was no hope of rebuilding the temple, and it made them suspicious of any more would-be messiahs. Rabbi Akiba, who had proclaimed Bar Kokhba to be the Messiah, was flayed alive for his part in the revolt. And the Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai, who had survived the first destruction of Jerusalem, advised his followers to finish what they were doing before rushing out to meet the next Messiah. But the second revolt also had a marked effect on Christianity. It cost the Jewish strand of the faith dear. They refused to engage with the revolt, which led to violent reprisals and accusations of betrayal from their fellow Jews. After the revolt, They no longer had the prestige associated with Jerusalem to rely on. Jewish Christianity limped on for a few centuries. In the 380s, when the scholar Jerome moved to Bethlehem to work on his Bible translation, he encountered surviving Jewish Christian communities even then. Christians elsewhere distanced themselves even more from that heritage. They had enough problems without being linked to rebels. The Romans imposed a punitive tax on the Jews, and Christians were keen to avoid that as well. But that made Christianity more visible. And for all these troubles, Judaism was still a religio licita, an officially approved Roman religion. Christianity didn't have any such protected status. The destruction of Jerusalem had one final effect. Leaving Christianity without a central holy city as it did, other candidate cities started to jostle for that position.